If you're a homeowner or even a renter, you have probably had to deal with a plumbing problem in the past. But how can you be sure that your plumber isn't leaving you high and dry? 7 on Your Side troubleshooter Horace Holmes did a little digging here, and he and Kelsey Owen of the Better Business Bureau are here now with more on what they found out. Thanks for coming in, guys. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to be here. You know how the feeling is when you hire somebody and they come in and they do work in your home.
You never know.
You never know. And sometimes you get that feeling after you've given them the money. You know what, did I pay too much for that? And so that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to actually give our viewers some real hard information and a behind-the-scenes look. Because
so how did you go about this?
Okay, let me, and then we'll bring Kelsey in just a minute. But here's what we did. We rented a home in the D.C. area. We rented it for a week. And we equipped it with all kinds of hidden cameras, as you can see right there, throughout the home. And then we brought in a master plumber who came in and checked the plumbing out and then helped us to create a small problem, a leak in the kitchen sink, in the faucet. And it was a really tiny little problem that any of us, any of you, could fix in seconds. And then we hired 7 plumbers, brought them in one by one.
Oh, this sounds interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And just took a look to see how they would diagnose the problem. Our producer was posing as the homeowner. And so it got down to them taking a look at the problems, and then let's take a listen when it came time to diagnosing and then charging.
I'm going to say roughly this hose is going to run you $45 plus our charge is $158, so we're talking about roughly around $200.
Okay.
And you know, it was very interesting because everybody had a different diagnosis and everyone had a different charge.
Well, that's probably a pretty typical charge. I mean, whenever you call for some outside work, there's usually that $100-some fee just to step in the door.
But as Kelsey knows, that most people don't pay attention to that or don't know.
Right. And there doesn't always have to be the upfront fee. You can find plumbers that will come out for free. But what we recommend is that consumers always do their homework. It is super important to take the time to read what's out there about that company.
We have to interrupt you guys for just a minute because we mentioned a little earlier ago that there has been, the jury has returned to the courtroom now in the Charles Severance trial. We're going to head over to Dave Lucas in the newsroom with the latest on this. Dave?
And the verdict is guilty in all 3 of the murder charges. Judge Randy Bellows came in the courtroom a little while ago. On count 1, the capital murder of Ruth Ann Lodato, guilty. Count 2, the use of a firearm in the murder of Ruth Ann Lodato, guilty. Count 3, malicious wounding of Janet Franco, guilty. Count 4 is the use of a firearm and malicious wounding, guilty. Count 5 is the capital murder count against Ron Kirby, guilty. And also count 7, first-degree murder of Nancy Dunning, guilty. So guilty on all of the murder charges here. Now, there are capital murder charges, but apparently the death penalty has been removed from this case. So 3 potential life sentences for Charles Severance there. He's apparently been found guilty in little less than 3 days, 3 full days of deliberations by this jury. They heard more than 100 witnesses, 2,000 pages of Charles Severance's writings, and now all 10 of those counts have come back guilty, including possession of firearms in the use of murder and also malicious wounding, and all 10 of the charges against Charles Severance have resulted in guilty verdicts from this jury. We will have complete coverage for you of the verdicts. It's been a sensational case since it broke with the arrest of Charles Severance in West Virginia, coming to something of a conclusion today with those 10 guilty verdicts by this jury. And we'll get you back now to Let's Talk Live.
Dave Lucas with the latest on the Severance case in the newsroom. Once again, you heard here he was found guilty on all 3 of those murder charges. And we'll have more on that throughout the day here on News Channel 8. Back to our guests over here talking about some plumbing problems. And Kelsey, you were beginning to tell us about just how common it is.
Right. So the most important thing is you can do your homework. Before you get these plumbers into your home, take the time to see what others are saying about them online. At BBB, we've got free business reviews on thousands of plumbers in our area. And you can see what complaints have been filed, how the consumer was able to resolve that complaint with the business.
You know what, Melanie, is very interesting in doing these types of stories. People make all kinds of mistakes all of us make mistakes in hiring contractors. And one of the biggest mistakes is trying to go for the cheapest one.
Right.
And not do any homework at all, and not even know how they're going to operate once they get into your home.
So how do we kind of discriminate? What kinds of questions should we be asking potential plumbers?
Well, let's take a look at this next bit of video, because here's a really tricky situation where we called one of the plumbers in, and our producer, posing as a homeowner, thought that she had an understanding with the office on what the service charge would be, and look what happened.
$270. It's $270 just for that little bit?
When I called, nobody said there was a 2-hour minimum. I know that nobody ever discussed a 2-hour minimum. I know that.
So that was the thing. $270, and that gentleman came in, diagnosed the problem correctly in 2 minutes.
Wow.
Fixed it in another couple of minutes.
But yet he's going to charge you the full 2 hours.
He had to call back. He called back to the office, and they said 2 hours. And then our homeowner is there saying, no, we didn't charge that. So what she ended up doing is part of our story that you have to watch tonight. But maybe
so there's a problem with how much they're charging. But it sounds like there's also a problem with the diagnosis. Did most of the plumbers figure out what was wrong with the spigot?
We had to help a little bit on some of them. So, I mean, that's just the thing. You don't know when you hire someone, because you're hiring an expert.
It's their
I don't know about
yours.
Exactly.
Right.
So, what would you suggest that people do?
Get 2 to 3 estimates. We tell everyone, don't go with the first one. It might be the low price that sounds great on paper. When once they start doing the charges, you might have an extra issue that comes up, and there's an extra fee that gets tacked on.
And what they're going to say to you is, well, we've got to come over to your house in order to take a look to see exactly what the problem is. I can't give you an estimate until we come over, but then they're charging you to come into your house.
Right, right.
And as much as, I mean, you heard him, $158
right.
just to come into the house.
So are you being charged by time? Are you being charged by milestones? But as the project gets completed, we don't recommend doing any money up front. 100% up front is not the way to go, but paying by milestones if you can. As the job gets completed, pay a percentage of the job.
Melanie, that's a big problem people make, not only with plumbing, but with all contractors, is they pay the money for some reason in full up front or before the job is done.
Done to their satisfaction.
Yes, never do that.
Now, what about referrals? That's a good thing, right? Get a few referrals from some friends or colleagues.
Absolutely.
Where do you go for referrals? And where's the? I mean, you've heard of Angie's List, I guess, but you have to pay for that, right?
Right.
Where else?
Better Business Bureau. We've got thousands of business reviews on these plumbers, and you can see that you can read the complaint detail. We've also got their licensing information. You want to make sure that plumber is licensed, they're insured, they're bonded, they're able to come into your home that way.
And let me ask you a question on that, because in some jurisdictions in our area, if you do get so-called ripped off by a contractor and they are licensed, you have a recourse.
Right. D.C., Maryland, Virginia all require their plumbers to be licensed. And when you work with a licensed plumber, you do have that extra third party that you can petition to get your recourse, to get your money and to get your job done.
The licensing agency
Yes.
through the state or jurisdiction.
Right.
In case of the district.
And we have to tune in tonight at 11, right, Horace? Your
Absolutely.
piece runs at 11, and you're going to actually open people's eyes about this whole idea of who do you hire?
You're looking behind the scenes at how they actually go about diagnosing and then dealing with you, the homeowner. And we give you, the biggest thing is we give you questions to ask. Arm you with some information so you don't get that feeling of pain.
We don't want to get bitten, right? Horace Holmes, thanks so much with the 7 on Your Side, a troubleshooting team. And Kelsey Owen with the Better Business Bureau, thanks for coming in as well.
Thank you.
Looking forward to watching tonight. Thank you.
Good, thanks.
And we have more News Talk coming up in just a bit.